Eni Akinshola. He's a media practitioner, public analyst, trained diplomat, and chief publicist at Agogo Publishers Limited. He's joining virtually from Ondo State. Good morning, Mr. Eni, and good to have you join
Good
us.
morning. My pleasure being with you this morning.
Thank you so much. And of course, straight to Lagos, where we have Chief Dr. Pascal Ebohime. He's a retired director, NDIC, a management consultant, and a strategist. He was a PDP aspirant for Igwebe local government position as the chairman. He's a philanthropist, founder of the ASAN Youth Empowerment Center, and a member of the Confident Friendship Association, CFA. He's joining virtually from Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, Dr. Pascal, and we're glad to have you.
Good morning, Daniel Osadibame. Thank you for having me this morning. And my friend, Akinshola.
Good
All right,
morning,
let's get to, let's start with you now, Dr. Pascal. We just came out of a heated race in Edo State, and Nigeria celebrated 64 years a few days ago. What is the fate of Nigeria at 64, and how are we faring?
Well, Nigeria at 64, in terms of gaining its independence in 1960, we all know that it's a very welcome development. We thank God that today we're independent politically, because we cease to be under the control of the European conquerors, if you like, those who conquered Nigeria and imposed their Western ideas and policies on this country. But we are unable to gain the independence. But more importantly, we want to be able to look at Nigerian democracy after gaining independence. We all know that we went through military dictatorship. At the beginning, we have civilians at First Republic that were able to, after Nigeria gained its independence, they were able to come out with what I call democratic rule. But in no time, they were taken over by the military. So for a very long period, we have military regime until 1999, where we have, there was a return to democracy. For us to be able to know how far we have gone, to address your question, I think it is important we put ourselves, we have a common understanding of the term democracy. Democracy is a system of government where people, where power is vested in the people, either directly or indirectly, through representation. And of course, what that means is that the citizen of Nigeria is given a voice, in the political process. And so we expect the established institutions like the ANEC and other institutions to be able to uphold the rule of law and protect human rights and promote transparency and accountability in the conduct of his business. And so really, when you look at the core principles of democracy, that is how to start the discussion where we have been since we gained our independence. Issue of popular sovereignty. The government has an authority, but the authority must be derived from the will of the people. So the rule of law is we expect individuals, the government, and the various established institutions, to be subject and accountable, under the law, and there should be fairness and justice in the democratic process.
Okay, apart talking about this, Okay, land on your thought before we get to Mr. Eni.
Yes,
quickly.
Apart from this, there should be protection of rights and freedom and separation of power between the judiciary, the executive, and of course the legislature. And we expect that there should be free and fair election. And of course, thank God there are multiple party systems in Nigeria. But the issue of inclusivity, because there are a lot of marginalized groups like the youth, women, and the physically challenged. To what extent are they involved in having a say in the decision making in this country, either through direct or through representation? So these are issues that we think we need to look at.
All right,
but
quickly.
of course, there have been strengths, a lot of strengths
We will return back to you in a moment, Dr. Pascal, but let's get to Mr. Aini quickly. Mr. Aini, talking about, he actually spoke about free and fair election. How would you assess the current state of Nigeria's democracy, especially as we approach the Ondo gubernatorial election, which you are a key player on?
I want to thank my brother for that expose on democracy and its many values and virtues. The challenge we have as a country are many. I can tell you that we are not an irredeemable country. Challenges have come as a result of the openness of our electoral system, the fairness of it, and these are debates that will go on forever. And I can tell you, elections will still be debated on the basis of their freeness, on their fairness, wherever and for how long elections are conducted. Insofar as humans are involved in the processes of election, there will be debates as to how fair or how free. In the US today, right from the Trump era, we have had renewed debate on how free and fair election is. For instance, in America, you can win the majority of votes, but because of that law, the law that governs electoral college, you may not become elected despite winning majority of votes. So there are rules governing this. Some people are debating, why are we still using the electoral college? Why not just go through popular majority votes? So ours also is no difference. There are limitations that we have imposed as individuals on our electoral operating system that our structure as a country has imposed on our electoral system because of our division along ethnic, regional, and oftentimes religious reality. There are some weights that have been imposed on our electoral system on account of those ones. There have been weights that have been put on our electoral system on account of our history. The fact that we had military rule that was relatively oppressive, that disregarded the separation of powers all along the line. So these push and pull factors have affected our electoral system. But I can tell you, we progress if we do not keep quiet as citizens. We progress more if elections are held regularly. We progress if people come out to participate in elections. I tell you, rigging is possible when people do not compel society to obey its law. Nobody, look, where you have relative strength in terms of figures, in terms of resources, in terms of, you are likely going to inflate the figures. But as long as, or as you go further, and the balance is tilted in favor of the common people, and the elite do not feel that we should get ourselves off politics. Because more often than not, you see brilliant, level-headed elites, they do not get involved in politics. It's a dirty game. You see clergy saying politics is a dirty game. Clergy of all shades of religion, they do not get involved. Either Muslims, they get involved in political discussions, but not in making political choices. So once we all get involved and we play our roles according to the rules of the game, we improve with time. I cannot say that we are going backward. I am saying that we are learning our lessons. And I hope that before too long, the lessons will begin to impact more on the outcomes of our elections.
Okay, Dr. Pascal, let's quickly get to you now. What are the key democratic principles that should guide the upcoming Ondo election? Bearing in mind that the PDP Edo State chapter, they have taken to the street to express their grievances against what they allege to call their stolen mandates. So what are the principles that should guide the democratic system? Okay, we've lost connection with Dr. Pascal. We hope we have him join us back again. Let's return back to Mr. Eni. Mr. Eni, Ondo State is in the spotlight. Looking at what happened, what took place in Edo State on the 21st of September, what are your expectations from INEC?
My insights into that. I am far from Edo State, but not too far. I read developments. I'll tell you that reality in Edo had so many factors that contributed to the eventual outcome. And we must be fair to ourselves. The PDP as the main opposition party in Edo Was he prepared to frontally challenge the APC, which is the ruling party? And I'll break it down. There were a lot of divisions, a lot of fights, a lot of bickering within the PDP, so much so that it has lost its foundational strength. There's a lot of dysfunctionality, leadership issues, fighting, infighting, so that the cohesion which we to fight and upturn the onslaught of the APC was not there. So if you don't prepare well, you're likely going to lose. And that is an aside. Ondo State is going to be a straight battle between the PDP and the APC. Yes, you're going to have some fringe interventions here and there. The what is it called? SDP, Labour Party, who are having problems with their candidacy. We are going to have, but it's still going to be a straight battle between the PDP and the APC, no doubt. For the PDP to make any inroad, there has to be a drastic change in attitude by the leadership of the PDP at the national level as well as the state level. That is not happening, so I'm not going to see any serious outcome from it. I mean, the PDP is still ossified along in the old ideas. There are still emerging leadership crises at the national level. At the local level, this is still being run like an exclusive party. And I can say this because I was in the party. You understand me now? If you want to go to an election and win against a ruling party, you must put your house in order. In fact, you must prepare 10 times more than the government you want to overturn. I'm talking of Ondo State now. You must prepare more. You must be unified. You cannot afford to start leaking, hemorrhaging across the state. Rather, you must be able to stitch your points of hemorrhage. You must be able to bring more people into your circle. You must be able to woo the electorate. Because every politics, at the end of it all, is personal. Some people will say it's ideological. It's personal. You must be a person to have an ideology. You must be a person to have some values. So if you are not a person with set rules, set life hacks that would define your ideology, you can't play the ideological politics. So it is first and foremost personal. What do I get from it? If all you need is you want to bring development to your people, it is your personal thought, personal decision. There are others who don't want to bring development to their people. It's also their personality, their definition of values that will affect the way they play politics. So it all depends on, it all boils down to you and I. What do we going to get from politics? What are the goals we dream of our society? What are the ways to go about getting these goals resolved? That is what will play out in Ondo State. It will not be about, look, a lot of people say, yes, Nigeria is difficult. This will have fundamental impact on the Ondo election. It will have impact, but it won't be fundamental. A lot of other things, the local reality, the way the political elites are situated, the arrangements that what favors which zone, what are the arrangements along that line, who gets position of vice deputy governor, who and where is the speaker likely to come from? All those ones will also form part of what determine the outcome of the Ondo election.
Ondo election. Now, before all this permutation, where will the deputy come from? Where will the speaker come from? All these permutation are part of the process. However, you made mention of something very striking. You said it's going to be a straitjacket between PDP and APC. Aren't you scared and skeptical of the damage ahead? SDP is a strong force in Ondo, and of course, Labour Party too is a force to be reckoned with. Don't you think if these two parties come together, it's going to be a disadvantage for any of the ruling party in the state?
It is too late in the day for any coming together. You see, once you do not come together before candidates are nominated, it is too late. I mean, I'm a practical person in terms of politics and analysis. You have a candidate in SDP who has invested time, money, and resources. You want to push the interests of his party and himself. You have a candidate in Labour Party who has invested time and resources. Ordinarily, they are fringe players. I mean, those parties, ordinarily. You understand me? The last time Labour Party won election was 2009, and then 2012 2012, 2012, the second time. After that, the Labour Party went down because the principal players in the Labour Party moved en masse. So the new Labour Party we are having is not as strong as the Labour Party that ran the state successfully because the principal players had moved. The SDP, yes, we have a candidate that could be said as strong, but in terms of relative strength with the candidate of the APC, the PDP, he still goes a distance down fourth or fourth or fifth. So that's why I say it's a straight battle between the PDP and the APC. Any other analysis may not be factoring the facts on ground.
Okay.
But that is the fact. But
go ahead, land on your thought, please.
How each party arrays its forces, deploys its arsenal, will now be dependent on the strategies involved, the realities, and the expectations of the people from each of the parties.
I would like to ask you, before we get to Dr. Pascal, is the APC banking on power of incumbency? That didn't work out well in Edo State if you followed the electoral process. Is the APC in Ondo banking on the power of incumbency?
I would say yes, and I would say no. What do I mean? Yes, because the factors determining what incumbency means are quite different in Ondo from what Edo is. Ondo has the local government under the hands of the APC, the state government under the hands of the federal government under the hands of the APC. So incumbency is from top to bottom. In Edo, you have the local government under PDP, the state government under PDP, the federal government under APC. So incumbency is not in all the layers and in all strata. The forces, the agencies that oversee our elections are mostly federal and not states. Mostly federal. INEC is federal. The police security agencies are federal. Even as tangential as monitoring groups, election monitors, they are federal. They are screened by INEC at the federal level and then given licenses of permission to monitor election, except those of the UN. Even those ones still have to register with INEC at the federal level. So incumbency must be situated correctly in this situation. But incumbency will also play its own part. The governor of Ondo is APC. And it's running. The other person who is around is the candidate of PDP. He was a deputy governor some time ago. He has attempted to become governor. He lost out. So he's also running. Others are people who have played politics here and there. But I would say, yes, incumbency will work. But if you do your job well, there can be an overturning of the apple cart.
Okay.
And if you seek my objective opinion, I have not seen it.
Okay, we'll return back to you. Let's get to Dr. Pascal. Dr. Pascal, what lessons can we learn from previous elections in Nigeria, and particularly in the 2023 general elections, and how can they be applied to the Ondo election?
Thank you so very much. That's a good question. Earlier on, I gave you the core principles of true democracy, as we expect any part of the world. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, like my friend rightly put it, talking about the issue of free and fair election, and upholding the rule of law by established institutions and being transparent and accountable to the people. Those are the areas I would like to touch upon. Now, first, I would say that since independence and there have been Nigeria had several consecutive peaceful transfer of power, right? Culminating in the 1999, return to democracy. So there have been institutional continuity, apart from the fact that there are multiple party systems, which enable every individual to have a choice. I mean, to make his own personal choice to which party to join. But I do not agree with my friend who says that Nigerians have learned their lesson. We have not learned any lesson at all. And I said this without missing words. For instance, we know that the issue of electoral integrity, right from time, we have a lot of electoral malpractices, voter suppression, vote buying, violence in some places, manipulation of results, and of course, apathy. That is not many people are involved in the electoral, the voting process. Of course, the issue of weak institutions, talking about ANEC, is it independent, is it autonomous? The issue of, like you said, the issue of federal might. Most of these institutions that are established to conduct election everywhere in all states and local government, they are federal institutions. And so who appoint the chairman of the INEC? Who appoint the talking about separation of power, like the judiciary? Who appoint the chief justice of the federation? Everything has to do with federal government. And when you look at other issues like the legislator, we're supposed to be part of, separation of power. The Senate president and a few other people, we know that these are APC people, and they have allegiance and interest in the APC. And therefore, any state that features an APC candidate, of course, they will be more influential in those states. Now, having said this, the issue really, talking about Ondo coming up, we have not learned the lesson. And I want to say, talking about free and fair election, and the sovereignty and the will of the people matters a lot. People should be allowed to cast their vote. One man, one vote. And I can tell you from the experience in those states, gubernatorial election, it was very peaceful. Every unit and ward, it was very peaceful. The policemen were there, apart from the deployment of high level of police and military who were on the streets carrying guns, which of course could lead to intimidation and fear on the part of the voters. But strictly speaking, in the voting arena, the unit and the ward, voting was very peaceful and smooth, right? Collation at the ward level was very good. The deployment of technology, that beavers and transmission of results was very good. Because I voted, I was there, I saw it myself. And then up to the local government level, it was peaceful and results were transmitted. But where the problem came was when they now moved to the situation room at the state level, which is ANEC Collation Center. That is where the problem is. The issue is, were the people allowed, talking about political party agents, right? Were they allowed, and of course civil and media, were they allowed to be at the point of collation by ANEC? No, they were not allowed. It was like done secretly and in private. So this is where the problem lies. Talking about issue of transparency and accountability. Talking about issue of manipulation of results. Now, the lesson for those on those state elections is that election will be peaceful. There's no doubt about it. Particularly when we know that APC is the APC party is the government in power in those states, and therefore, even if you have police and soldiers, the interest will be to protect and ensure that it is free and fair, and there will be no violence. That's what is given. Okay. But where they have to learn is what happened to those states. The collation of results. If it is possible to swear an affidavit or to swear an oath that when it comes to collation of results, first, let me say this. The use of beavers and transmission result to RRF is good. There's no problem with the technology. They should allow it to work the way it has been designed. They should ensure that that process is protected in all those states. The second one, which is very, very important, is the collation result by ANEC. It should be done in the open. There should be transparency and accountability. They must insist that they must allow civil society group. They must allow international and local observers. Okay. They must allow media, television, to be there, focused on the counting and collation of results, so that we can get to the outcome of the election. And so it will be announced. Everybody will be there will be faith and confidence in the electoral process. This is the lesson all those states must get. They must get this lesson. If they cannot protect the integrity of the result at the point of collation by ANEC, consider it a done deal for APC.
Let's pause.
government.
Let's pause
That
you a
is
little,
where
Dr. Pascal, and head to Mr. Eni. Mr. Eni, in your opinion, from what Dr. Pascal has said, how well prepared is INEC? You know, they are independent, yes, but according to your submission, it's a federal parastatal that takes command. The chain of command is from the federal government. So how prepared are they to conduct Ondo election, considering the recent challenge faced in Edo State or another state, not just
What?
Edo State, other states, Kogi, and even Imo State and Bayelsa?
Thank you very much. I will repeat what I said earlier, well, which was obviously not well captured by my brother. I said we are learning our lessons. I didn't say we have learned our lessons. It's a learning curve. So that is what I'm still saying. We are learning. Either positively or negatively, we are learning. What INEC can, I don't know the readiness of INEC. I'm not a staff of INEC. I don't relate with INEC. But if INEC were to be a functioning, if we are going to be a thinking, a changing, an active, a proactive agency, they must have learned where they messed up in Edo. From the account of my brother, he said elections were free and fair at the unit level. They were well collated at the unit level. They were well collated at the ward level. They were well collated at the local government level. If INEC succeeded that far in Edo, that is a fact that we can develop on. And I will say this, at the state collation center, it is not an all-commerce affair anywhere in the world. At the state collation center, they are party agents, not the agents at the local government level. No, they are state representatives of the party who are allowed into the collation center. It is not all the monitors that are allowed. I have monitored the election. It is specific monitors of those monitoring agencies that are accredited to be at the state collation center. It's not a stadium affair. For television, it is accredited television stations. And I am sure in Edo, there were accredited television stations. I know it was there, channels was there. And it is what I saw on TV, we saw television stations reporting. It is what I said something. I said I am not close to Edo. At the collation centers, this is what ought to happen. After the local government collation, the INEC collation officer calls local government by local government. Sir, this is result from my local government, and it's presented. The figures are announced. From your account, from the account of my brother, that means the parties have the figures at their local governments. So if there is any disjuncture, if there is any problem between what was collected at the local government, duly announced at local government, and what is eventually collected at the state government, then there is a point that can be acted upon. Because once it is uploaded at the local government and it is correct, if there is any change between what was recorded at the local government and what was recorded eventually at the state government, there is the possibility of litigation. Because you cannot jump from 1,154 from AZ local government, and at the point of collation it becomes 10,064. That is actionable.
Okay.
That's why I say we are learning. So once those things are established, if I were a party and I have the strategies for the party, I will insist that my agents get the recorded result at every polling unit. Recorded. When they are announcing, record. The Form C8, sorry please, it has been done before.
Okay.
And I'm being frank. You get your Form C8s from all the units.
Okay.
By the end of the week, you get your certified true copy ready. At the collation center of the local government, you get the documents ready. So if there is any problem with what you have at the local government and what eventually comes at the state level, it is actionable. It can be determined in the law court.
Okay.
If you now go out from this moment and start saying, in already local government, these were the figures from the local government collation center. When it got to the state collation center, so and so number have been added to it. You prove it with the documents at your disposal.
Okay.
That is the lesson I think we should learn.
Okay.
And that's the lesson that can help us to move forward.
All right, Dr. Pascal, you will react to this now. He just talked
Let me
about.
react.
Yeah, quickly.
Yes.
You want to react, or I have a question for you
Yes,
anyway.
I want to relate to what my friend just said.
Okay.
We should not be learning. You know why I say we should not be learning at this point? Whatever we do today, right, supposed to be decision taken 20 years ago or 18 years ago to have, close to a good system, an effective democratic system. Because the future we want to have has to be created today. The point I'm making is this. It's not a learning point because people have invested. It has to be accurate and precise, the collation process, so that there should be no error. Now, why am I saying so? People have invested a lot of money and time and energy. So why will you come to collation center where everything is supposed to be transparent according to core democratic principle, transparent and people, it should be clear, it should be fair and just. I know there's provision to go to the court. There's provision. But why do we have to go to court all the time if elections have been done smoothly and according to the laid down principles? Now, what I want us to take from here is this. We cannot continue to learn and doing the wrong thing. We learn to be honest with ourselves. There's some point deceiving ourselves. If you want election, the people to vote, every citizen to vote, and they actually went to vote. When it comes to accounting, people are looking. They are waiting for their will, for the mandate to be given to the right person who won the election.
Okay.
And there will be shake of hand between the winner and the loser. But when there are irregularities and imperfections, and a lot of what I call contradictions and paradoxes, you can imagine, for instance, when Nigeria are complaining of hunger, no food, you expect that people will vote against APC. That is the truth. But what do you have? You see a collection of people, they say they are voting for APC. For me, that is a contradiction. It's a paradox. But honestly, focusing on election for Ondo State, I will advise them, they must monitor and ensure beavers work. And I can tell you the readiness of ANEC. ANEC is very, very ready. They deployed staff of NYC, corpers. They were trained. They did their work at unit and ward level. The ANEC staff, they entered the result in each unit and ward in the relevant forms. All of us were there. We even took the picture of them and so on and so forth. They did their job. Where the problem is and where there is an influence is at the state level where you have ANEC coming from the federal government. That is where the problem is.
So hold on, Dr. Pascal. Hold on, Dr. Pascal.
Yes.
Just hold on. You will continue in a jiffy. You actually said INEC was ready. INEC actually did everything. They followed the right procedure. Deployed. So if you've actually alleged that INEC actually worked well, why cry foul that you lost out in the election?
There were a few instances, for instance, there were a few instances material did not come on time. And in terms of starting, some didn't start until 9 o'clock. Okay. Now, in terms of readiness and preparation on the part of ANEC, material must get to the polling unit at the right time. All the documents must be ready. The beavers, the machine must be in good state. Because I could remember one or two instances where agents of another unit or what had to run to my unit and what because we have finished voting around that 1:30 or 2 to take the beavers. Now, all the ANEC must be ready in all these things. They must be fully ready.
Okay.
But over and above that, the voting and the conduct of ANEC at the unit and ward level, they were good. They did their job perfectly. My problem is not with, the voting and whether or not people were orderly. They were orderly. Where the problem lies, taking the experience from Edo State, is in the collation at the state level and the failure for some collation from local government to be done in one or two local governments, and they were taken to the state level. Nobody knew what happened. There were a lot of manipulation.
Okay, Dr. Pascal.
Be that as it may, the lesson for Ondo State, and I repeat, is that they should look out for. But luckily for them, it's an APC state. Things will be done normally. The only fear now is that they will not want violence from PDP, assuming they are more popular. Or the people of Ondo State, they want a change in government to a PDP person. That will not happen.
Okay.
I can assure you that will not happen.
All right, Mr. Eni. We'll return back to you. Mr. Eni, quickly help us. Do you think the judiciary, from what he has said now, do you think the judiciary has played a critical role or a positive role in upholding democratic principles in resolution of electoral dispute in Nigeria?
Before I come to that, please, I need to re-emphasize this.
Okay.
I insist that no society stops learning. And my brother, why saying that we can't continue to learn, still came back to say that the lesson Ondo State has to learn. That's my point. Is we have to learn from the mistakes and from the good things that we have done. If we don't, we won't move forward. That's my point. All this while, in Edo, he has pointed out what we're done right and pointed out what we're done wrong. So it is for those people, INEC and all stakeholders, to learn and improve upon it. That's where I'm going. That is where. That is not. I didn't say we must experiment. I said I didn't say we must experiment. I said we must learn. So we do not have a disagreement. It's the way you presented or the way you understood me.
It's your
I didn't say
opinion.
experiment.
Your opinion. It's your opinion. And of course, we respect that.
You see,
and of
they
course,
said that
Dr.
only
Pascal
the
too,
dead man-
that is his own point.
No, it's only the dead man stops learning. That's
Okay.
my contention.
No.
That
So
is my
quickly, what
logic.
the judiciary,
Now,
have they done well?
The
Let's talk about the
judiciary,
judiciary.
it is also, yes, the judiciary works according to one, the law, two, the facts before it, and the diligence of the parties before it. More often than not, we expect our judiciary to work on emotions. For instance, I'll say this. It is emotional to think that because a government is not performing well, everybody will vote against that government. It's emotional. It's emotional. The reality is that what you think as non-performance may be performance in the eyes of somebody else. What does it mean? I'll just break something down. In my village, what people need from government, and I tell you, it's just let us have light. They are almost 100% not dependent on government. So if, because we have not had light for 10 years, we now have a government who provided light, whatever theory you propound elsewhere, they will go vote for that government. The other thing is, if you have somebody who resonates with you, you can stay in Abuja or in Akure to pontificate of his many errors. If he resonates with the common man, you will discover that good or bad, they will still vote for him. I have to say this. So emotionally, the courts, as I was saying, the courts detaches itself from emotions. And that is why most of the judgments are seen to be unfair, because we, the outsiders, we look only at our emotional dispositions. Mostly, not only, mostly on our emotional disposition. For instance, you come to court, you say you won an election. Okay, well, let me start from there. You say the election was not free and fair. You now claim in your request from the court that you want to be declared the winner of that election. Is that not a contradiction? Is that not a contradiction? You say the election is not free and fair, that it was marred irreconcilably with irregularities. But by the same token, you appeal that, yes, the election was bad, irrevocably bad, but declare me winner. That cannot but be a contradiction.
The court
The
have
other
to go
person now
through some process to
No,
ascertain if
no.
you actually won.
Now listen, yes.
Sorry.
Now the other party says, yes,
No.
I know there were errors.
No.
In so and so places, I know there were errors.
Okay.
But that these errors were not sufficient to vitiate, to nullify the outcome of that election.
Okay.
Listen to me, please. I said these are scenarios before a court of law. One says the election is irrevocably bad, but declare me winner. Another
Okay.
says, yes, there were errors with this election, but on account of so and so, I won the validly cast votes, so declare me winner.
Okay.
The judges would look at the facts before it. This is not to say that there are places where the course of justice have been subverted. There are so many places, so many instances.
Okay.
But to argue, and I say this, to argue that because the federal government appoints chief justices, then they will willy-nilly work against the federal government, is neither here nor there. In every jurisdiction, and I repeat every, the federal government appoints the justices of the Supreme Court based on recommendations of institutions.
All right, Dr. Pascal. Dr. Pascal. All right.
Let me react.
Quickly land. Okay, land. Okay, go on. Just land quickly.
Just
sum up.
land.
Okay, land.
You cannot argue that because the state governor is the final person who appoints the chief judge, or because the president is the final person who appoints the chief justice of the federation, that they will willy-nilly be biased. You cannot so argue.
All right, Dr. Pascal, now, what are the major threats to democracy in Nigeria today, and how can they be mitigated during the Ondo gubernatorial election? It seems you have interest in Ondo State, even though your party didn't get the desired victory in the polls in Edo, but you seem to have interest in Ondo State. So what are the major threats in democracy today, and how can we manage it during Ondo election?
Now, you see, let us not lose sight of the fact that the point I made earlier on, the challenges or the threats, there are challenges and threats, right? I strongly believe that if there is improvement in the integrity of the electoral process, right, that they eliminate completely issues of malpractices, voter suppression, vote buying, and violence and manipulation of results. If they can eliminate that, and then the institution, everybody believe that the democratic institutions in this country, they are very, very weak. They are not properly developed. I don't know the reason why. For instance, we're talking about independence and autonomy of INEC. It is true that people are appointed, but it is also possible to get the chairman of INEC, properly recruited based on competency model, and the individual do not have to have inclination to any political party, and use experts to recruit somebody who will be the chairman, who will be independent and autonomous. And of course, you will talk about issue of civil society and the rest of it. They'll be doing their job, but some of them have been intimidated. Now, I think what is important here is that the issue of outcome of a result, whether you go to court or not, even when you are in the court, right? It doesn't matter whether the person is appointed by the federal government. Somebody has to be appointed. That is not the issue. The issue is that they will have file before them. The file has to be put to test, were the both valid and reliable. If they were valid and reliable, and the findings are strong enough to base the outcome of the election, that is it. They have to prove that point. And so we expect those who are against a particular election to go to court if they felt very aggrieved. They go to court, present their data, I mean, both. Leave out all the challenges that happened. I mean, all the problems they experience. That is a common level ground.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, they have to be able to prove before the court that there were cases of overvoting. What does the law say about overvoting? I mean, talking about electoral law. What does the law says about cancellation, manipulation of data? I'm talking about votes of any of the political parties. Now, when these have been reconciled by the court, they will put all the data together and then come to the conclusion to say, yes, based on the evidences, tangible evidence before us, on the basis of vote and applying the relevant electoral law, this candidate won that election. This is what people want to hear. But unfortunately, in this country, it's not as easy as that, because many people believe that these institutions are weak. Two, there is no clear separation of power, that the power of the legislature, of the judiciary, is like given to the executive. And that's where the problem lies. So the power of federal might in determining the outcome of result today, which is the evolving democratic culture, which should not be allowed, is that there's too much interference, from what I call the federal might, which is not relevant. For me, leadership is about service, selflessness, and obeying the will of the people. If the will of the people is subverted,
Dr. Pascal,
the purpose is defeated.
Dr. Pascal, I would like you to quickly react to this before we get to Mr. Eni. He will be reacting to this too. Your statement actually brought my attention to it. In Edo State, there was a time the PDP won the 18 local government in the states. And nobody actually took to the street to agitate against it. During this House of Assembly election, the PDP got a good number of representations there. Other political parties took it as their fate. Do you think the election that brought all the 18 local government chairmen in Edo State, that produced the whole of them from the PDP, was free and fair?
Was the process, the question is, was that process of election
Yes.
at the local government, was it free and fair?
That's the question.
Were there complaints by people that the elections were rigged?
There were complaints.
There were manipulation of
There were complaints from opposition parties.
From the opposition, were there? If
There
they
were,
they should have taken the matter to court. If they didn't, and they accepted the result the way they were, be it, that is the way it is.
Okay.
But that is not to say that it is not possible for, in an election, for a particular party to win everywhere.
Okay.
It is very possible.
Okay.
If they found out that, if the people in every local government found that the government of the day, they were performing well, and they were delivering on the services, that they needed, they could vote for the party of their choice.
All right, let's get to
one, which will be guarded against, is giving the freedom and independence to cast their vote. One man, one vote.
One vote. Okay.
Once that is done, is protected, there's no problem.
All right, please let's get Mr. Eni's reaction. Mr. Eni, quickly, you would like to react to this?
My point is this: the most blatantly rigged elections in Nigeria are local government elections. I mean, there are no elections held when it comes to local government elections in most places. I mean, and these are facts. We can get emotional, we can run away from the facts. But people have settled down to the reality that once a sitting governor is in the state capital, let him just do whatever he does with the local government elections. That's why people don't go to court. It is not because they are not blatant. In fact, voters' participation is less than 10%. Credibility is near zero in local government elections. But we have settled, society has settled for that reality. At the state level, we are not encouraging that. And that's why some of us, my major argument all this while, at every forum, at every opportunity I've had to speak about Nigeria, I say that we must rework the Leviathan. We must break down this edifice and rebuild it. But each time you say it, people ask, are we going to wait till we rework the Constitution before we move forward? So that's why I offer palliative suggestions. For me, the only solution to Nigeria is break down this huge behemoth, rework the Constitution from the people. What kind of federation do we want to run? What powers do we want to submit to the federal government? And what powers do we want to hold with the federation unit? It won't be until we settle those ones. All these dysfunctionalities will continue to repeat from themselves. We'll only be able to learn that marginally. They will not be geometric lessons. They will just be additional lessons.
Okay.
But once we break the Leviathan down and rework the Constitution such that it emanates from the people, from the bottom to the top, then it's going to be easy to make the system work, to make the institutions work. For instance, I'll just cite one instance and then I'll move to your question. A state has a population of 20 million people. It has 20 local governments. Another state in the same country has a population of 4 million people. It has 18 local governments. Can there be justice? Can there be fairness? Can there be integrity in that kind of outcome? No. So that is a foundational problem. I raised it earlier, that we have institutional problems that beset our elections. We have religious problems that beset our elections. We have ethnic problems that beset our elections. We have geographic problems that beset our elections. How do we correct all this? Break down the Leviathan, rework the Constitution. But now that we are not ready, now that we are running away from that thing that we have to do, what can we do in the interim? And that is what I've been trying to say. Make the system work. How do we make it work? Trust the process.
Okay. Dr. Eni, your network seems to be hanging. All right, pick it up from there. Pick it up from there. Go on, Dr. Pascal.
Let me guess. Now, look, the Constitution as it is now, I agree with the last, with my friend, need to be revisited. But even some of the provisions in the Constitution, they are very clear about, the delegation of responsibility between the federal government, the state, and the local. Recently, we know that autonomy has been granted to the 774 local government in Nigeria. There's of fiscal autonomy. And people are asking, if every local government will not get resources, the fund directly from the federation account, directly, without having to go from the state, which is the joint account, which have been sorely abused by many state governments. Once that is done, and other things are put in place, like what I call local government political autonomy. they should have the right to conduct the election guided by the federal and state system.
Okay.
Then I'm coming. Let me land.
Please land. Okay.
Once that is put in place, there should be little or no problem in terms of fairness and equitable and conduct of election, whether it's transparent or not transparent. Now, I think what is important is that local government autonomy is important, provided the people are properly elected, the chairmen, the councillors are properly elected by their people. Once that is done, and there's not too much interference from the federal government or state government. But as it is now, ANEC for local government, if you see what is happening in the Rivers State local government election coming up on Saturday, it's a lesson for everybody, because there's a lot of problems coming from ANEC, federal ANEC, wanting to do it differently from what the people believe in. So this is the kind of confusion we have in our democratic culture or system. So I believe very strongly, going forward, the right thing will be seen to be done. Local government should be completely autonomous.
Okay.
Both administrative autonomy, fiscal autonomy, political autonomy, and even strategic autonomy.
Okay.
So that every local government will have independent and a better chance of doing things according to the ways and aspirations of their people within the local government.
Thank you, Dr.
That's the way
Pascal.
we have to move forward.
Okay. Gentlemen, we have just 15 seconds to go. Abuja is already standing by for the next lap. You are a member of the fourth estate of the realm. What are you expecting from civil society and the media, which you belong to, Mr. Eni? Just quickly help us quickly wrap up on this. What are your expectations
objectivity, objectivity, free, fairness, and less emotions.
Okay.
Let us not be emotional in our analysis of issues. What are the laws? How can we make it work? Who is right? Who is wrong according to the law?
Okay.
Then we can move forward.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We sincerely appreciate you, gentlemen, for
they should be
being,
more. The media should be more involved in investigative journalism.
Okay.
When facts are presented, they should be able to follow up, like the case of Ondo State, for example. Look up for these facts and analyze very well and have their position like the election observers.
All right.
If you listen to some of the election observers, they have their position on the matter of Edo State. Media should have their position on the election in Edo State, and even in Ondo State, they should be prepared. This is the point. They must be objective, like you said. They must be transparent in reporting. They must do a lot of public discourse. They should force candidates to come for debate. Let know their policy trust, because leadership is about service. And,
Dr. Pascal, we would like to pause it here. We'll bring you again so that we can take it from this end. Abuja studio is already standing by. Thank you so much, Chief Dr. Pascal Bohime, for joining us, and of course, Mr. Eni Akinshola, all the way from Ondo State, while Dr. Pascal joined from Lagos.